If you've got a question, the voices of resin are here. Oh, PlastChicks.
PlastChicks is an SPE-sponsored podcast.
Hey, Lindsay, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's sunny out. I don't think there's more snow in the forecast.
That's amazing.
Probably good. I can't say for sure, but like good odds, no more snow.
Let me close my Teams because I am just blowing up right now after coming back from, I was traveling this week. I got back late last night. So everybody wants a piece of me.
Well, PlastChicks is number one priority. You tell that to everyone. Well, I'm Lindsay Neville.
And I'm Mercedes Landazuri. And with our powers combined, we are PlastChicks, the voices of resin.
Yes. And today we have a fun little guest for you. This is a guest that's actually dabbling in the same space that we do. And that's the podcast space, not the plastic space. Everyone's in the plastic space that we interview. So I want to introduce Justin Riney, Sustainability Commercial Manager for Americas, INEOS Styrolution. I'm really struggling today. And host of the podcast, Redefining Plastics. Welcome, Justin.
I appreciate you having me. And you actually nailed the name, which is 90% of the battle.
And it's hard. It looks like an easy last name, but as a Nebel that often gets Nebel, I get it.
I get Riney a lot.
I see that.
Oh my gosh, Lindsay, I forgot to let me mention to you after we stop recording. I met somebody actually just yesterday who has almost your name. I'll have to tell you about her later.
Wow.
She also works in the plastic space. It's weird.
I don't know whether to be flattered or concerned.
I don't think she's single white femaling you. I'm not sure if she knows who you are. But I will definitely make that introduction for you both. But back to you, Justin, our actual guest here. So, Justin, I was really excited that we're getting the opportunity to talk to you. I see a lot of parallels, at least on the surface, between you and me. I mean, you are a fellow BA, right? You got a Bachelor of Arts and not a Bachelor of Science, like a lot of people in our industry. And you work for a company that works with polystyrene. My first love is a polymer. Having worked in the solvent dye space, that's like pretty common polymer that uses solvent dyes. But you also call yourself an accidental plastics professional. So you'd studied like history and biblical studies, I believe, in undergrad. So and then got your MBA and probably never imagined yourself in a career like this.
No.
So can you tell us about how you ended up in this industry? You're a plastics evangelist of sorts, right? With your podcast. How did this switch flip for you, so to speak?
Honestly, I don't know. It's always difficult because people are shocked when they find out what my actual background is from an education standpoint. That how are you talking about plastics when you don't have any kind of scientific background? It's like, well, I let scientists talk about that stuff. I stick to what I know, which is how to talk to people, advocacy, sales. I think that's kind of how I fell into this. I was in procurement with a packaging company, actually multiple packaging companies. And then in the first one, they came to me and said, do you want to manage polymers? And I said, I don't know what polymers are, but whatever you need me to do. And so they gave me polypropylene, polyethylene, polystyrene, ABS, colorants, and additives. And
that was
a
lot.
Yeah.
They really packed it on.
It was several $100 million worth of stuff too that I was trying to manage. But the more I talked to people and the more I got to know about like what made polymers work in certain applications and why use polymers versus glass or paper or whatever, I just kind of fell in love with it. And I fell in love with the people, I think is the easiest way to describe it. Is I think you all were just in Nashville, right? Did you go to SPC or anybody here go to SPC? No.
I have memories of Lindsay's last time in Nashville,
right.
and it was hilarious.
Okay. Well, if you go to an event like NPE or Plastic Recycling Conference, it's just like family for me.
Right.
Because they're people I've known forever. I know about their kids. And so I kind of became this evangelist, using your word, because I got so sick of hearing people denigrate the industry, talk about how we're killing the environment, that we're big oil, we're plastic, like just all of these different things that aren't true based on my experience in this industry. So I finally got sick of it and said, well, I'm just going to start talking about it. I don't know if anybody's going to pay any attention to what I say, but I'm going to do it. And it seems to have caught on quite a bit. I'd like to reach outside of the plastics bubble eventually, but seems like the only people that are listening to me are people that hate plastics or people that love plastics. No in-betweeners.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one thing I think goes really understated about the plastics industry is how tightly knit it is. You know, I've been a member of SPE for actually, this is my 20th year.
Wow.
And, you know, a lot of the people that I see at these conferences, you know, you see them year after year. And, you know, it's my husband had the pleasure of joining us at Antec this year. And as he was kind of like walking around with me, he's like, you know so many of these people and connect to them on like such a personal level. I'm like, because this is one of my favorite times of the year is when I get to see them and hang out with them and hear how they've been and what jobs they're at. And I think that's it. I don't think it gets mentioned enough how sweet this industry is.
It really is. So the way I look at it is there are a lot of really great people that make really good livings working in polymers or packaging or whatever. And so if things keep going in the direction that they're going now and deselection keeps happening, a lot of those folks have very specific skill sets to the plastics industry. And I don't see them able to get the same kind of job in another industry, at least quickly. They're very talented people. I don't want to talk about them like they couldn't.
Can I stop you for a moment?
Yeah.
What do you mean by deselection? Do you
deselection as in moving from plastics to paper or glass or metal, or just this idea that plastics are bad, so let's deselect it and go to something else. That's just it's a term that's used a lot in polystyrene because it happens so often. So I use it all the time. So I apologize. But yeah, I just want to protect jobs and people. And so that's the main reason why I do what I do. Most of what I do is unpaid. I do the podcast on my own time. It's my own money. I've invested quite a bit of my own money into doing it. But it's kind of my little passion project now, and I'm just going to keep doing it because I like it and it's fun. I'm sure you can both agree that talking to people you wouldn't normally have the opportunity to is just great. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I just sent an email back to someone I met last week, and they were talking about the podcast, and I said, yeah, there's a lot of great reasons we do it. And I said, but there's my selfish reason is I love doing this. I love being able to talk to people. I love being able to go up to people I probably wouldn't have and say, hey, you want to be on a podcast? And I love getting stories connected that I wouldn't have otherwise had a chance to do. So fully agree there.
Yeah. It's a great icebreaker at an event. Walking up to somebody, just taking your shot. Hey, do you want to be on a podcast? Talk about everything you just talked about right now. But yeah, it's fun.
This would go great on a podcast.
Yeah.
So going back to poor little polystyrene, with its deselection happening, you said that 2026 is the year you're clearing up those misconceptions.
Yes.
So let's start with a spicy question. What's the most annoying myth about polystyrene?
There are a couple, but I think the biggest one is that it's not recyclable. And it couldn't be further from the truth. I think a lot of people conflate recyclability and recycle rate, and because there's good reasons, because the FTC says you have to have 60% access. It's not specific like that, but it's
Right.
well, it's understood. You have to have 60% access. So 6 out of every 10 Americans have to have the ability to put that package into their bin, and then you can call it recyclable, which I understand why they do that, because you don't want to mislead people, because it's actually just going to cause more cost in the recycling industry, and they don't need that. But we are recyclable. We're just not recycled curbside. I think that's the biggest thing. And what most people don't realize is less than 10% of all recycling that happens in the US goes through curbside bins. There's a lot of good reasons for that. Contamination. So most all municipalities, there are about 6,000 municipalities that govern recycling in the US. Every single one of them has different rules, but the majority of those are single stream, as in you've got one bin, you dump everything into the one bin, and then it's separated out in a material recovery facility, a MRF. That's the single worst thing that we've done as a country when it comes to recycling, because nothing contaminates more than dumping everything into one bin. We really should be doing it the same way Europe does it, where you've got a bin for every product, and then the pickups come less often. But the majority of paper that's recycled in the US doesn't go through curbside. It's distribution centers. And that's because that stuff is clean and they can take that back. Because I've talked to people that are in procurement in fiber trying to get new paper, and the majority of what they're buying is not curbside. It's not from a MRF. So this idea that you have to be curbside recyclable in order to be considered recyclable by the FTC, I think, is a misnomer, and it shouldn't be that way. But I understand why it's that way. So that's, I think, the biggest misconception. I think the other is the fact that people think it's toxic, and it's just, it could not be further from the truth. It's inert.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that one gets me.
Yeah. It's, I mean, and for me, one of the things that really bugs me is that polystyrene isn't curbside recyclable, or that it's been so difficult to find places to recycle my polystyrene, which I think we'll get into in a little bit. But I mean, polystyrene has become, and probably this is more, well, both inside and outside of the industry, because if you look to some of the products commonly made, so a lot of the single-use products made and used in North America, it's a lot of polystyrene, right? Do you think that, and so it seems like polystyrene as plastics have become kind of the villain in the story.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's a fair narrative? Do you think it's lazy narrative?
It's not fair, but I understand why they do it. So I spent a lot of time talking to people in the olefins business, so polyethylene, polypropylene, and they're very happy to toss polystyrene under the bus because that just means more business to them.
Well, you have to toss it under the bus because you can't put it in the bin.
Well, you can still recycle it. You just have to take it somewhere. But yeah, so the idea is, right now, the olefin industry, in my opinion, is playing a very dangerous game, because this whole effort to get out of polystyrene and to quote unquote ban products, it's because people want less plastic. And polystyrene is about 3% of the packaging market total by volume. So it's a very small piece. So NGOs or anti-plastic actors look at polystyrene and say, well, that's a really easy win. We can go after that. We can ban that. And then we move on to the next. And the next one on the list is polypropylene, because that's the next smallest and the next more difficult to recycle material. So it's a very short-term game if polyolefins and PET are not defending all plastics.
They're just shoving the slowest man in front of the bear.
Exactly right.
Yeah, that's yeah, I agree. There's a lot of you have to save us all kind of.
Yeah.
Because to the average consumer that doesn't know plastic, plastic is
Exactly.
plastic, and they have no idea if it's polystyrene or glass filled nylon.
Yeah.
Those are the same plastic as far as they know.
And so I was just in Nashville earlier this week, and I was talking to city council members there, and they were talking about how polystyrene it's just big. It takes up a lot of space. And I was like, well, yeah, expanded polystyrene takes up a lot of space, but it's 98% air, and it does things that other packaging doesn't do. And they said, wait a minute. So polystyrene goes into other things too? Like, oh my God, this is just like such a huge conversation to have outside in 85-degree weather where Ginger is standing in direct sunlight. But yeah, we ended up talking about that because there's just a misconception of what polystyrene actually is. And a lot of people just associate polystyrene with expanded polystyrene, what they would call styrofoam. Mm-hmm. So just educating consumers on what plastics are what is really hard. And it's very difficult because to them, plastic is a plastic, like you said. So yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge for sure.
Yeah. What's something about polystyrene that you think would genuinely surprise people, even people who work in the plastics industry?
I don't know if it would surprise people that are in the plastics industry, but the 98% air in expanded polystyrene and the fact that once you densify it, you can ship it anywhere in the country and recycle it just like any other bale. I think that surprises a lot of people. I think the thing that really surprises people outside of the industry is when you say, well, if you ban polystyrene, you're actually not going to reduce the amount of mismanaged waste in the world. Because if you ban the product that's 98% air, you're going to put it into 100% of something else.
Right.
And once you do that, then you're actually not reducing material to a landfill. Mm-hmm. And so on top of that, polystyrene is lighter than several bigger polymers that you would transition to. So it's just more material to a landfill. And I worked in the packaging industry for a long time, like I said, and I had CEOs come to me every year. They would say, how do we get out of polystyrene? And so I would inevitably have to have a working group where we would sit down with the R&D people and everybody else. And as soon as the plant people came into the room, they'd say, why are we trying to do this? You're getting rid of the one polymer that runs well on all of our assets. It's the easiest thing to process. It is cheaper. Why are we doing this? And I said, well, public relations. That's why we're doing this. And so that's the thing I think most people are really shocked by. It's how much the industry actually likes the polymer and how much money it saves. And if you move from polystyrene to another polymer, you're going to have to get all new tools. And if you're a big company, that's a big expense. So there's just so many reasons why it doesn't really make sense to get out of it unless you're trying to win an argument with somebody that doesn't understand what's really going on.
And I think you struck a chord with me. Not that I didn't know this, but it just resonated. The fact that if you're taking something out, you're just replacing it with something else. Like that seems so common, but like, yeah, you can't not have packaging. And I was in Washington, D.C. last week, and I met a guy who worked for a packaging company that does I know them best for the holders on 4-packs of beer.
Okay. Yeah.
So be it.
Yeah.
And he was talking about, he's like, these tops, they're fully recyclable. I think they even had a certain, they're bio-based, and it was bio-based with a farm up the road. So it was like a very circular process. And I believe there was an effort to collect them. Either way, the other option that they were talking about was a paper packaging that goes on top, or one of those like fibery cardboard ones.
Yeah.
And he was explaining it to this non-plastics person, and they were like, well, wouldn't that just be easier? And he's like, it's paper, it's glue, it's paper, it's binder, it's a layer of plastic. And he's like, now I can't do anything with that at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And they were like, wait, that's not recyclable? And it's like, yes, that's the point. Like,
well, molded fiber.
This beautiful closed loop.
Yeah.
You destroyed it.
Whenever you look at molded fiber, it seems like a lot of plastics are losing out to that.
Mm-hmm.
The fibers in molded fiber are so short. What are you going to do with that? You can't recycle that back into new corrugate for sure. I don't know what the heck it goes back into. Most places don't even accept it. So it's like we're going in the wrong direction because people assume that paper is good, which is funny to me. Because when I was a kid, everybody looked at paper as like, that's the worst thing you could possibly do.
You're cutting down the trees.
Exactly. People were scaling buildings, talking about how horrible it was that we're cutting down the rainforest. And now everybody's like, just put it in paper. Like, what happened? And I could tell you exactly what happened. The Forestry Association got together, the whole paper industry came together, and they said, we're going to recycle our products and we're going to make it happen. And they put their own money into it. They created their own MRFs. They created their own systems, and they recycle the heck out of it now. And so it's completely changed the narrative. So plastics can do the same thing if we ever could just get our act together and actually put money into things that matter. And that would be one of the ways to do it. But if you can get all of the plastics industry to agree to anything, I would be shocked.
We're on it. Solved by the end of this episode.
All right. I like your faith in humanity.
I'm feeling optimistic today.
Yeah.
You are also a part of the Polystyrene Recycling Alliance. And what was PSRA originally designed for?
Recycling polystyrene. It's really that simple. We talked about the 60% recycle rate, so that's kind of the North Star. So America Styrenics, which is a competitor of INEOS Styrolution, who I work for, we came together and we said, nobody's going to fight for polystyrene, so we have to do it ourselves. So the entire value chain of polystyrene has come together to increase recycling. So I was in Nashville on Wednesday for a ribbon cutting for a new asset that we donated to the city to collect foam food service and foam transport packaging. And we do stuff like that all over the country. We just recently announced a project with the Mexican Plastics Pact to collect yogurt cups and dairy containers in Mexico City because they don't want to move out of polystyrene in Mexico. And so they wanted to figure out how to make it circular. So we're putting money into it to make it happen. And so that's really what we're here for. We're not here for any other reason other than expanding polystyrene. So I'm the chair this year, so I get to travel around and be the face of the organization for a year, which is fun. But then somebody else is going to come after me. And that's the nice thing about it, is there's always going to be somebody there that will be the face of polystyrene recycling in North America.
Now, you kind of alluded to, well, some of the things that the paper industry has done. So it seems like that's circularity really does depend on alignment of these multiple players and the whole system, and not just material substitution, right?
Yep.
Do you think that there are instances where substitution makes sense, or should we really focus on fixing the system?
I think we kind of touched on it earlier. I think substitution, if the material is a better product for the application from a mechanical property, chemical property, whatever, then yes, move to it. You should choose the best product for the application always. So if there's a better product than polystyrene for that application, by all means, go right ahead and do it. But we're not losing out because of mechanical properties or how it runs or anything like that. We're losing out because of misinformation and misunderstanding. So in my mind, I don't think material substitution is the way to solve problems. I think there are organizations that are focused on that, and I think they're focused on the wrong side. I think if we want to talk about reducing plastic to landfill, we can have a conversation about, do we even need this packaging at all? This specific package, do we need it? And if we don't, let's just stop doing that. It's really not that complicated. But just moving from one plastic to another, I don't want to bash other polymers, but this happens a lot. People will say, well, I'll just move from polystyrene to PET. It's like, well, that doesn't make a ton of sense, because what you're doing is you're making an opaque PET, which is banned or on many elimination lists or whatever, in the same way that polystyrene is. So you just hear PET and you think recyclable. Really, the PET that's recycled is bottles. There's really not a lot of other PET recycling that goes on. So you'll see big companies and big brands say, look at us, we're moving from polystyrene to PET for this product or that product. And I say, good work. You just made the problem worse. You're sending more material to a landfill because it's heavier, still going to have food contamination, still not going to get collected, and it's heavier. So you've done the exact opposite of what we should be doing.
It's funny you say that, because I, again, was in DC last week, and I was waiting to get in. I participated in the PlastChicks fly-in.
Yep.
And I was waiting to get into one of the buildings, and there's this guy behind me, and he said, he was a little too friendly. It was like 97 degrees, sir.
Yeah.
Please back up.
Yeah.
But he was like, oh, what are you here with? And I said, I'm here with, the plastics industry. And he was with like shipping and logistics or something like that. And he goes, oh, plastic. Because can I ask you a question? And I'm like, oh, God, please.
Yeah, this is going to be fun.
Right.
Yeah.
And he goes, is plastic biodegradable? And I'm like, can be. There's biodegradable plastic. And he goes, why don't we just make milk jugs out of that? And I was like, I don't know where your brain and it was just such a good example of taking little snippets of what is known about the plastics industry, or in this case, not even known, and just trying to force it into like, oh, this is easy. It all goes back to the lay person doesn't understand there are differences in plastic. But even when they do think they have a little nugget of knowledge, it comes out in this like insane. I slowly was trying to like kind of give him a little bit of an education while like not flinging myself back into
Can't get
traffic.
deep into those. That's a mess.
And I was just kind of explaining to him that different materials have different purposes, and, why we use PET for water bottles and polypropylene for, jugs. And I'm trying to like kind of give that basic. And he goes, I think it should just all be one material. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Wait, come back.
Are you stuck through security? Bye.
Yeah. So you hit on an interesting point, because I love what you guys are doing, the two of you, and what you're doing. There are a couple other people that are doing plastic podcasts. There's not enough people talking about plastics in a serious way, when we're not just fanboying or girling. We're talking about things that truly matter. And we're talking about how we make this system better. Because if we're not talking, there are other organizations that are talking a lot. And they're very loud. They're well organized. And like this plastics detox movie that just came out, that's funded by, I think it's Minderoo, which is the metal. It's the metal billionaire. Of course, he's going to have an anti-plastics thing because that makes him more money. And when you start to follow the money in these NGOs, you start to figure out why plastics is under attack, because all of those companies want plastics out of the game because that's more money for them. More power to you, but let's be a little more upfront about it, I think. Let's not try to convince people of things. And so when you look at Gen Z actually recycles at the lowest rate of all generations before them by a
Really?
pretty significant margin. And the reason is because their entire lives they've been told that recycling is a fraud. Just go on to my LinkedIn or my Instagram. Whenever I post anything about recycling or a video about how to make recycling better, the first 7 comments are typically somebody under the age of 25 saying it's all a lie anyway. Why are you even trying to do this? Misinformation, this, that, or the other. And it just shows how ingrained in society now it is to say plastics are bad, get rid of plastics, recycling is a fraud. And the problem is, and I don't think the NGOs understood how good they were going to be at this, because recycle rate for paper is way down, glass is way down, metal, because they've convinced kids that all recycling doesn't work. And so they've actually caused a bigger problem than I think they thought they were going to. So yeah, if we're not loud and if we're not talking about these things, we're going to continue to lose. And that's why I think it's important for you all to keep doing what you're doing and for me to keep doing what I'm doing. We need more people to do it.
And I think a lot of times in our industry, talking about like the SPE people that I'm around, it's a lot of scientists, it's the academics. And I think the problem is we're all people that rely on facts and data. And we assume that just having those facts and data is enough. And that is not enough by today's world anymore. It's
not even close.
You take the facts and data and make them appealing or fun or interactive or somehow quiet the noise from the non-facts, because it's the non-facts that are winning, which is, you say that in an academic and science-based society and everybody loses their mind because it doesn't make sense to us. But that's doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense. It's what the actuality is.
Yeah, I think you nail it, because the industry for a long time has been throwing LCAs and product carbon footprints forward and saying, look, we're better than the alternative. You should do this because we're better than the alternative. People don't understand that. They have no idea what you're even talking about. Science illiteracy in this country is so high. I'm talking about, even like, I went and saw a bunch of senators, U.S. senators last year, to talk about things that mattered to my industry. And half of them had no clue what we're even talking about. Like, I thought that was this. What is that? I don't even know what you're talking about. So you have to have a narrative. It has to be a story. It has to be a video. And it has to be like 15 seconds if you want to catch Gen Z, because our collective attention span, I think, is down to like 9 seconds now. So if you don't capture somebody right away, they're just scrolling on to the next video. It's just a mess. But anyway.
Yeah, no, but you make a great point about, you have to tell a narrative, you have to tell a story. Humans don't remember facts for the most part. We do remember stories. History is passed down through generations, through storytelling. So that's why, you have the banning of plastic straws when you're able to tell the story of a turtle who gets a straw stuck in his nose,
Which may not have been a straw, but that's a different argument altogether.
Right. But yeah, so we haven't been good storytellers within the plastics industry, I think, and that definitely needs to change. Now, what do you think has been the hardest sustainability trade-off you've had to defend when it comes to polystyrene?
Trade-off. I don't know. I don't think because typically when you look at trade-offs in packaging, it's like, okay, we're going to move from polystyrene to polypropylene. It's going to cost more money. It's going to cost us recapitalization and everything else. So typically my conversations are the opposite of like, I'm here to tell you facts so you can avoid an unnecessary trade-off so you can feel better about yourselves. Because that's really what we're talking about. We're not talking about actually making anything better. It's just a marketing angle for a lot of these big brands. So most of my conversations are the opposite of that. Not necessarily a trade-off. But I've been in recycling now for about 15 years. And is always interesting when you're talking to brands, how little they understand about any of this. They are so confused. And then when you start talking about PCR inclusion, just as an example, well, why can't we go to 50%? Well, if you go to 50%, you're going to have a lot more off color. You're going to have degradation of mechanical properties. You're going to have a lot of reasons why that's a bad idea. Well, we can sell 50%. We can't sell 30%. Well, you got to tell the marketing people there's reality and there's what they want. And so like those kind of conversations are always hard because most brands are marketing organizations. And so you're trying to convince somebody who's a marketer to make a realistic decision that's not necessarily going to help them market, which is, it's very difficult to do. But yeah, trying to convince people to stay in polystyrene is a real challenge.
So you said you've been doing this for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think we could be in 5 to 10 years with polystyrene recycling?
It's a good question. So we have a 31% access rate for recycling right now. So 31% of Americans have, or it's 32% of Americans have access to recycle at least one form of polystyrene. If we really focus on more expansion like we just did in Nashville, other big metropolitan areas, we could probably get to the 60% by the end of the decade if we had enough support and we had enough money. Because if you look at polypropylene, they just went through the exact same thing. They went from, I think, 19 or 20% to 62% access now because they had TRP, so the Recycling Partnership, Keefe's organization. They had a lot of money go into that because the brands got invested in it because they've got a lot of packaging in polypropylene and they wanted to protect polypropylene. So that I think is the biggest difficulty for us is our packaging is not necessarily front and center. Like a Mars bar or something like that. Ours is more to protect the package as it's being shipped with expanded polystyrene, or to make things more convenient when you look at a clamshell, a polystyrene clamshell. So that's a little more difficult to get buy-in from big organizations to want to put money into it. So that's why we're putting our own money into it. But if we really want to make a step change, we need some technological advances as well. We need advanced recycling to scale, which it really hasn't done yet. And people will say, well, yeah, pyrolysis has been around since the 80s and you've never been able to make it work. It's like, well, it's more existential now to actually make it work. Because if we don't, we're going to keep losing. If you look at the growth in fiber versus plastics, it's huge. And we could be doing things a lot faster if we could just agree as an industry to actually do these things and do them in the right way. But I think we could, if the chips fall right, we can get to 60% access by the end of the decade, I think.
And how do you think, or how do you think, and or what pathways is the Polystyrene Recycling Alliance pursuing? What do we need to get there? So speaking on behalf of the organization is a little tough because everybody has their own opinion. Right.
But I will say for myself and for most of the leadership of the Polystyrene Recycling Alliance, we understand that since we're 3% of the packaging market, it is very difficult to convince Waste Management to spend $10 to $100 million to put a new asset in to collect 3% of waste that comes through their system. That's going to be very hard. It's going to take a long time to pay that back. So that's why we're doing things like we just did in Nashville, where we put drop-off locations and people are actively using them. There's a drop-off location here in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, about 20 minutes from my house. If you looked in my garage right now, there's a lot of EPS from my neighborhood that is collected in my garage. And then I drive it up there once a month because it's only a 20-minute drive.
EPS for our listeners who I don't think we've defined it yet, but that's expanded polystyrene. So styrofoam.
People
as
call
when
it
you think of it.
styrofoam. I try not to say that
Yeah.
because that is a Dow-owned brand name.
Competitor, yeah.
So I try not to talk about that. And honestly, styrofoam is for insulation board. It's not even for your transport packaging that everybody calls styrofoam. So that's a little thing that also kind of bothers me. And it really bothers people in the EPS industry if you call it styrofoam to them, because then they'll very quickly correct you. No, it's expanded polystyrene. Anyway.
And again, facts don't matter. The story's already out there.
So for expanded polystyrene, think whenever you get any kind of a package in the mail that needs to be protected and you pull it out and there's that white stuff with the little beads that are all mashed together. It's really light, which is great for shipping, not great for making it recycling friendly because it's so light and it takes up so much space. So we put in these collection sites, and then it's densified 50-1 through either heat or pressure. And then you make them into bricks, which then you can fit a full truckload of material on there. It'll be 41 to 42,000 pounds. So it'd be like shipping any other, and I apologize because I think my kids are about to walk in here. So yeah, now I lost track of thought.
So you're shaping it into these bricks, like on site at the collection center.
Yeah, so it depends on the collection center. So the one that we just put in is it uses heat to melt the plastics, and then it makes it into ingots. You can find the video. I just put it on my LinkedIn to show kind of the whole process and where it comes out. But that's called hot melt densification, and then there's cold melt where you just take pressure and you mash the material together. It's like a big garbage compactor. And then you've got a full brick, and then you just stack them onto a pallet and then ship it to wherever you want it to go.
And where does it go from there? How many companies are actively accepting that kind of material?
We just did an end market study. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but every state in the union has at least one company that's buying this material. I know I'm buying it. It's collected at every distribution center that I'm aware of. It's collected at Best Buy, Home Depot. So the recycle rate for EPS transport packaging is over 30%.
Wow.
It's actually higher than bottles.
Yeah.
Depending on the year.
Wild.
The problem is it doesn't hit any of the metrics because the metrics only count for what goes into the MRF. And we don't send this to the MRF. It's all happening outside of the MRF through reverse logistics, industry take back programs, and things like we just put into Nashville. But it can go into picture frames. It'll go into new EPS transport packaging. It goes into a lot of different things.
I'm struck by the fact that, if it's not in the MRFs or it's not curbside, it doesn't count.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much, well, I think I know the answers. I don't think most people realize that. Yes. And I don't think I realized it to this extent either. That 9%, recycling rate is not a reflective number of really anything that's actually happening in our industry or in our recycling world or, and again, whoever started that 9%, they really got that story out there and just ran with it. And we were trying to go, but science, but data.
Yeah.
And
well, the funny thing about the 9% is that's including all your durable goods too. That it literally took the amount of plastic produced and then it said how much of it was recycled. It wasn't accounting for what was in planes, cars, boats, whatever.
I don't want to recycle my planes right now. Thank you.
Exactly. So it's not a direct correlation between, and it's interesting because paper industry and the glass industry are held to completely different rules than plastic. Because when you look at the plastic industry, the conversation is always, well, I want it to be bottle to bottle. I want that PET bottle to be recycled and then made into new PET bottles.
Right.
When you look at paper recycling, I don't hear anybody talking about, well, I want that OCC to go right back to OCC.
Right.
Most of the time it doesn't. The fiber starts to break down over time, and that will become lower grade paper. And then it won't happen anymore. If you look at glass recycling in America, most of it goes into aggregate or asphalt. A lot of municipalities don't even accept glass because of how dangerous it is to transport it in a single stream system. But if you were to say, if you were to say, I'm going to take plastics and I'm going to grind it up and put it into asphalt, people would have an absolute conniption. Mm-hmm. But when you say I'm recycling glass and nobody asks the next question, into what? That's what's happening. And no glass bottles are really becoming new glass bottles, at least in any municipality I've ever lived in. And I've lived in a lot of different places.
Do you think we, the plastics industry, would fare a lot better if there was some sort of, I know you can't go true apples to apples comparison, but if there was a way to, tell that story, how do you think the picture would look?
I think the picture would look a lot better when you compare us to glass, for sure. Because glass is heavy. You can't really recycle it. It takes a lot of energy to melt it back down to make it into new glass. So that's the reason why that doesn't happen. The paper recycle rate is really high. If we're being honest, it's probably somewhere around 70% when you account for everything. And we're not there. We're not even close to that. Because I think the industry recycled 5 billion pounds. If you look at just APR numbers for plastics in APR, Association of Plastic Recyclers. I throw a lot of acronyms around, so I have to catch myself. But they say 5 billion pounds were recycled in 24 in the US, I believe, or it's either the US or North America. That only accounts for a small portion of what's actually being recycled, though, because that's not accounting for people that they don't know about. There are post-industrial recyclers all over the place that don't talk to APR. There's a lot of recycling that happens that nobody knows about. And so it's just a matter of how do we tell our story better, in my opinion, and how do we not come off as preachy or like there's a lot of people that are very vociferous in their defense of plastics on LinkedIn. And I think they're going about it in the complete wrong way. Like they're fighting with the wind. They're tilting with windmills. It's just the exact wrong way of going about it. They fight with every single post that they disagree with. And the only thing that does is increase engagement for those posts, which means the algorithm says, people like this. I'm going to show it to more people.
Let's show anti-plastics to
exactly. And I don't know about you, but very rarely do I actually look at the comments on LinkedIn posts, unless it's something I'm truly interested in.
I only do if I think it's going to be a little bit of drama.
Exactly right.
Lindsay definitely dives in.
So the comment will be, well, hey, if we fight with it in the comments, then people will see the comments. Like people aren't looking at your comments, man. No. I don't know how much clearer I can say this. You're just making the situation worse. Now, if you wanted to make your own posts and really drive people to truth, that's the way to do it. That's the way that we have to do it. But it cannot come off as being funded by the plastics industry, because every single time that happens, like, well, obviously you're a paid plastics actor. I can't trust anything you say. And
I would love to be a paid plastics actor.
I would love it too. If I was actually like receiving money for this. Yeah.
I'm just drawn back to the fact that, that plastic detox was funded by
Minder.
Yeah. And the people that are saying like, well, follow the money, you're plastics.
You're doing the same thing.
They won't do the same thing back on this. They just take it as, at face value.
Confirmation bias. The only reason why they aren't doing that is because they already assume that plastics is bad. So these people are telling the truth when the plastics industry and big oil, are telling falsities. And
Right. Yeah. Hey, it was fascinating how it was framed. Did you both watch the Plastics Detox?
nah, I don't
No.
have
It wasn't it wasn't terrible. It didn't make me too mad because it really centered on, and I don't know if probably everybody else watching it won't see it, that people who don't work in the plastics industry won't see it this way, but the main researcher, she's focused on two specifics affecting fertility, and that was like BPA and phthalates, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot to back that up. But she didn't. This main person she didn't say anything really that I disagreed with. But what I did disagree with was everything that was being shown as like, let's get rid of this, let's get rid of that. It was all
didn't have those things.
Polyethylene, polypropylene, PET, which doesn't have any BPA or phthalates in them.
Yeah. And BPA, that's a whole other bailiwick. But
right.
BPA is not nearly as scary and as dangerous as people say it is. Right. I'm not going to fight that battle. I'm not going to die on that hill. Polycarbonate gave up on that battle a long time ago.
Yeah.
They're happy with letting it go. I'm happy with letting it go. But the phthalates, like your perfume has more phthalates than any plastic. So if we're talking about, because it sounds like a chemical detox to me, but
yeah, exactly.
The
but it wasn't framed that way.
Cells.
Right. Yeah.
And they've got the spoon of microplastics, which is insane. If you actually thought you had a spoon of microplastics in your brain, I think you need to have something checked, because that's insane. The amount of plastics that they think is in your head. And so like those kind of things. But I don't think even fighting with those really is helpful.
Right.
Because if the industry is really good at coming out and saying, this is false, here's the cease and desist letter. What does that do for anybody? Does that make anything better? No, it just makes it seem like we have something to hide rather than engaging in a conversation and truly talking to people. Like we were talking earlier about how one of my videos has that takedown request on YouTube now, because my friends in the anti-plastics movement like to occasionally report perfectly benign videos as being dangerous. And so I get all the time, they're like, well, why don't you just ban all these people? Why don't you ban them from LinkedIn so they can't see what you're doing? Why don't you ban them from this, that, or the other? It's like, no, those are the people I want to reach. Those are the people I want to talk to, because those are the people that are the loudest voices in the room. And they really hate me for some reason. And I'd like to know why. Why do you hate what I do so much? And then you start to build relationships with people. And then eventually you can have a real conversation about things. And I think that's what we need to be better at.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be okay, I'm here, I'm going to change your mind in 2 seconds. It's at least, please see that I'm rational.
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk around that.
Exactly. And if they prove to be irrational and have some sort of a monetary reason why they hate plastics, all right, I'm just going to not engage with those people anymore. But I've had some really good conversations with people that started off by saying I was killing the planet. And then we'd have a conversation and they find out maybe you're not. Like, you don't have that unless you talk to people.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Justin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure. We're just out of time today, but where can people listen to your podcast? Where can we find you? Where can we find out more about the Polystyrene Recycling Alliance?
All right. So Polystyrene Recycling Alliance is psrecycling.org. It's the easiest way to find that. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there. I haven't been recently because I've been traveling a lot, but normally I'm posting constantly. For the podcast, it's Redefining Plastic and Plastics, that is with an S. And you can find that anywhere you get podcasts, or most of people that watch or listen to my show watch it on YouTube. It's the easiest way to find it. So, yeah, and I appreciate y'all having me on. Like I said, I love that you're out here fighting the fight and just having conversations about this stuff. It's important.
Yeah, it's a great industry. It's a great material. I'll go on that. And, I think you're right. The more we talk about it, I think the better off this industry and our chances are of actually improving recycling and all that really goes up. So we appreciate it. And it was great having this conversation with you.
If you've got a question, the voices of resin are here. Oh, PlastChicks.
PlastChicks is an SPE sponsored podcast.